Thanks for tuning in today for the Builder Brain Series Part 3. The first video we did an overview of kind of the brain and everything we be discussing. The second video was based on the amygdala, our car alarm, and what her job is. And today we're going to talk about two main parts of the brain. I don't have my brain glove with me today, but you can imagine I have it on. And so today we're going to be talking about the prefrontal cortex. This is our decision making, our impulse control, our problem solving, very important logical thinking. And then we're going to be talking about our brainstem. We kind of hit on our brainstem when we talked about our amygdala last time, but this is the part of our brain where our fight, flight, or freeze lives. So talking first about the prefrontal cortex, this is right here. This is, like I said, it's our impulse control, our decision making, and our problem solving. One of its main jobs is to control the amygdala. Like we discussed last time on the amygdala part 2 series, is the amygdala cannot tell the difference between big danger, small danger, true danger, false danger. That's not its job. Its job is solely to tell danger, send off the alarm, get the body ready to handle it. The prefrontal cortex job is to come back in and say, wait a minute, that's not real or that's small, you don't have to panic that much. So if the prefrontal cortex is damaged at all because of trauma, which we'll talk about in later series, then it does not do its job probably very effectively to calm down the amygdala, therefore sending the amygdala even more into emotional response stage. The prefrontal cortex starts developing between the ages of 0 and 3 years old, and it relies heavily on emotional attunement and regulation from the caregiver. So once again, going back to that trauma piece, if there is not a stable caregiver that child had, that can also cause delays in the prefrontal cortex. The prefrontal cortex is also what I like to refer to as the zone. For an athletic term, is when someone's in the zone, they're capitalizing, they're doing good, they're super focused, they have their game face on, they're going. So when we are fully capitalized or we're fully in our prefrontal cortex, we're on our A game, we're doing it, we're problem solving and all that. For the prefrontal cortex to grow and to be healthy, it requires problem solving. So that means parents or caregivers or anyone, if you are constantly telling your kid the answer, go do this, go do that, don't do this because of that, and you are not allowing them to give feedback into the problem solving, their prefrontal cortex is not growing. You will see that later years, in teen years, that they will fall or easily more susceptible to peer pressure or more susceptible to falling into maybe bad groups of peers, because if you have problem solved for them their entire lives, then they cannot do it on their own. So capitalize on any moment you can. I talk about with clients or people I talk to is finding nuggets of time when the child is calm, maybe when you see them in their zone. And that's when you start maybe processing a time that had happened the week before at school or something like that, where you can say, how do you think you should have handled that? So problem solve is huge on if you want to have a healthy prefrontal cortex and to teach those kiddos to really learn right from wrong and to do that. We're going to skip the midbrain today. Becky Bailey calls that our puppy brain. I'm going to do a whole series on that next time to specifically talk about that. So we're going to skip that today, and we're going to jump straight to we did the prefrontal cortex. We're going to skip straight to the brainstem. And so once again, this is our fight, flight, or freeze. Its job is to make sure we are safe. It is, like I said, you can do fight, flight, or freeze. You can either fight back from danger, you can freeze and not move, or you can run away. So the amygdala's job, remember, is to send off the car alarm, warn the brainstem, and get us going. This is the only part of our brain that does not learn. This is super important. It also cannot, when we are in our brainstem, it cannot have access to memories in the hippocampus. So this is important because a lot of us parents and caregivers out there, when our kid is having tantrums or they're calming down and they're in their brainstem, that's when we think it's a good idea to jump in and give them this really great explanation and like good stern talking to. That's a waste of your breath. It is not effective. It's not going to change anything because they're not in the zone. So our job as parents, when we see our children in brainstem, in our tantrum mode, Becky Bailey calls this our reptile brain, this is a time that we want to ground them to reality first. Save those great speeches, save those for those nuggets of times when you can use it as problem solving. This is not the time for a great speech because you want your words to be heard, and they're not going to be heard when a child is in brainstem. So when a child is in brainstem, a way you can regulate them is always validate. Children don't get enough validation these days, so that really stinks. I know you hate when I have to turn off the TV and it's time for bed. That's not always fun. Or just validation. And then if they're really traumatic, we're having a full-on breakdown, that is a time to jump in and kind of ground them to reality. So you're in your room. We can deep breathe, role modeling. Once again, if you've seen quick tips with Katie, one of my second videos was on role modeling and how much more effective that is than telling. So you're in your room. You seem frustrated. Whatever we do, our main goal in that moment is to calm down the brainstem to turn on the computer. So when a child gets upset or angry, prefrontal cortex, like we talked about, turns off, brainstem turns on. You cannot teach anything to a brainstem. So today, what the overall challenge is to be able to watch to see when your child is in the zone or when your child is in brainstem and find those nuggets to start problem solving. Hope you guys have a great Sunday.